guess I'll put my stuff up and I'll go to sleep. Okay, welcome back. As everyone probably knows who's watching this, it's time for me to rant about a book again. It's not even that long. It's not even that long a rant, and I don't know how to talk about for like the other half of this episode. But it has me like fuming out of my mind, right? So once again, Giant Slayer, same book, whatever. Right, and what time is it here in this? Chapter 36, like halfway through or something. Right, Jin, I can work with Jin. I'd rather not. I don't think I would trade you Fiora, but I think I will. Because there's twisted face.
Smiling.
Okay. Sorry, it's tilting. And like, I barely know where to start. No. So, I found the sauce. I was looking for the vector. Right, and so, right, I'm reading Giant Slayer, and it's about Jack, right? The more and more I read of him, like, I started building, like, the tiniest modicum of, like, respect for him as a character, right? And I'm like, okay, you know, like, I'm getting it, like, I'm about it. I'm not, sorry, I've got mind flooded there very quickly. Right? And, I started, the tiny, because I respect the dude. I respect why he does things. Right? But the minute that starts building to me, enjoying his personality, like, every time it starts to build to that, he says something always in relation to John that, like, upsets me greatly. Because don't get me wrong, especially volume 1 through 3 John, which is what we're dealing with here, I hate that John's guts. Zero cap, full stop. Right? I don't like that John. I'd like to say more than most people do, and that's saying a lot considering how many people, like, bag on that John. Right? Because, deservedly, cheated his way into Beacon, like, absolute dead weight to basically everyone, understandable why everyone bags on John, right? But, oh my god, right, so he agrees to teach him, right? Teach. Like, hardest air quotes I think I've ever seen used, right? And I'm like, okay, if anyone can make John not worthless, it's this dude. That's, like, a fact, like, if anyone can do it, it's him. Right? And then what does he do? He proceeds to, he tells John, do a bunch of these exercises. Like, okay, it's a start, right? You want to be a hunter, start working out, start, exercising like a hunter. Right? Solid starting point. It's Saitama's workout for anyone who knows that. Right? You can look it up. The shit's not that hard to know. Right, it's Saitama's workout. It's like, okay, and you only see bits and pieces of what he teaches John, but right, so he effectively starts Pierre pulls him aside because Team Ruby and Juniper are privy to this John training session this one time, right? It's like, okay, and then Pierre knows and everything, and so Pierre asks reasonably afterwards, after he's got wrenches yeeted at him, and then as well as demolished by the tennis club, right? Really just had Beacon's tennis club square up at him. I should have expected that to happen. Right, and so she reasonably asked after Jack yeets wrenches at him, and then after getting him pelted by the tennis club, right? And so Pierre comes out and is like, what is your problem? He's like, you're gonna have to be more specific. What's your problem with John? Right? A reasonable question considering his immense problem with John. Right? And he's like, you mean other than the forgery, fraud, whatever, in all of, the multitude of crimes John he has committed. You cannot deny this. Right? And it's and he's 4 years behind all of his peers, like in combat knowledge and all of this stuff. It's like, so I'm not gonna waste my time training someone how to fight when I can, like, who didn't even bother showing storylines, when I can, you know, teach someone who deserves it, like the rest of my team. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. So he's like, I'm teaching him to be a meat shield. That is not what this dude's doing. Like, and if that's what he believes he's doing, he's lying. Like, to himself or Shapiro. Like, full stop. Like, his head-ass lying. Because he's not teaching John anything. He's like, I'm teaching him how to be a meat shield. Which is like, honestly, like, I kind of respect the hustle. He has an above average order reserve. Like, if he's can't teach him how to fight, teach him how to be a meat shield. Right? And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, that makes a reasonable amount of sense. Right? And then what does he go off and go do? Like, he says this, and I'm like, I don't think he understands how that works. Because he's like, I teach him how to be a meat shield. If he gets punched in the face, I'm teaching him to roll with the punches. If he gets stabbed, I'll teach him how best to put the pressure on the wound so he doesn't, like, bleed out. And I'm like, that's not what you're doing. Like, he's lying. And it's like, because if he was teaching him, right, if he was, as he says, is teaching John how to do all of this, you know, he'd tell him how to plant his feet. If you're gonna storm something, John has a shield, John can siege it. John just needs to know how to plant his feet. John's running at it like a fool, because he's John. Like, you know he's bad, and you're just like, you blatantly acknowledge this, except in regards to training him. You blatantly acknowledge it when you showed him the soccer field. He's like, this, John, is the soccer field. John was like, I'm not, it's stupid. He's like, well, you did take your way into beating, you know. So it's like, sorry for my assumption. And I'm like, bro, I might be a little good at Twisted Fate. Like, 0 confidence. Right? And so he's sitting out here like, yeah, I'm teaching him how to be a meat shield. I'm like, you're not teaching him how to be a meat shield and use that as your reason. You know, at least actually teach him it. Like, don't sit here and lie to Kira's face. Right? And he's like, he says to Kira, like, well, if you want to teach him how to fight, why don't you do it? You know, he's not on my team, he's not my problem. And I'm like, bro, you literally agreed. You could have just said, fuck you, John, if you didn't want to teach him anything. At least look him in the eye. I'm not going to teach you how to fight. I'm going to teach you how to be a meat shield for your team. John probably be like, okay. Be above average or reserve say this is a good idea. Like, it'd make enough sense where I don't think, and even if he did care, fuck, you know, you act like you don't give a shit about John's opinion. You tell him everything to his face. But that's not what he does. Like, he tells a lot of things to John's face, but it's just like, you're not admitting the things, like, how you see him to his face. He's like, you're not my problem, you teach him. Not on my team. And I'm like, I understand where you're going with that, and it's respectable. But it's like, bro, you can't literally look people in the eye and tell them, I'm teaching him how to be a meat shield. You're not teaching him how to be a meat shield. There is technique to being a meat shield, brother, and you're not teaching it to him. Like, that's just not what you're doing. And like, I need you to at least acknowledge that fact. The yellow card. But yeah, and I'm like, it makes me upset for numerous reasons. Oh, and then Pure's line of like, you're right. She couldn't argue with him because he's right. I'm like, about which part? Because there's a couple of the parts of what he's talking about that I really do not agree with being correct. Like, there's a lot of parts. John faking his way in is technically being Pure's problem. That I can agree with, if only to an extent. considering he agreed to train him. But it's like, there's many things that he's wrong about. 4 years is not a very large gap in skill, considering Signal students don't actually learn, like, they learn the basics. The only reason Ruby and half of them are as good as they are is because they trained way longer than just through combat school. And I doubt many of, like, your standard hunters, you know, have, like, veteran huntsmen to train them. Yang, like, I'm sure Pyrrha had the best tutors imaginable. Blake sort of learned the same way he did, right? She was out on the frontiers with the White Fang. I don't know if she's on the frontiers per se, but you get, like, the general idea there. Right? She was on the frontier with the White Fang. Yang had Tai, you know, a veteran hunter that at least presumably worked for Osmond once upon a time. Like, he's bound to know his shit. Right? Oh my god. Right? Ruby had Crow. She even admits it herself. She sucked before he taught her anything. Like, Pyrrha had, you know, the best tutors after she started winning championships. Weiss had the best tutor because she's Weiss. Nora and Ren had to learn because they were out by themselves on the wild. Like, you're comparing John to people that are absolute prodigies in their field. You compare John to your run-of-the-mill hunter. All he needs is like a 2-year education, but he's being taught by one of the strongest people known to man. You don't have to teach him all your secrets. You have to teach John the basics of the basics, and say, hey, Pyrrha, why don't you teach him a thing or two? Instead of sitting there and taking the moral high ground because he faked his way into Beacon. How about instead of taking the moral high ground, how about instead you just accept the fact that you agreed to help him and help him? Or if you're gonna help him in a certain way, like being a meat shield, shit, dude, at least commit. You can teach someone to be a meat shield. You can teach someone to get hit by something and keep moving. You can teach someone to roll with the punches. Like, you could teach him how to do that. It's not difficult, but it's definitely something that can be taught. You keep phrasing it like it's this immeasurable thing, you know, that you could have learned, you had to learn since you were a small child meditating in the fucking mountains, dude. Make it sound like you had to be a refugee from the mountains of Skyrim to even have a glimpse of understanding of how it works, which is just unfair and incorrect in, like, almost any and all capacities. And it's just like, I understand not liking John. There's a lot of things about John not to like. He's a liability to his team. He faked his way into Beacon. His team could have had someone better at the front of it. Shit, it could have been led by Jack in this instance. But that does not, like, give you the right of way to, like, if you agree to do something, do it fucking well. Do it right. At that point, you should just tell John, dude, I'm already keeping your secret. That's on you, nigga. If you really have that much of a problem with it, which you clearly do. Like, I'm sorry, it's just, you can't be taking this moral high ground when you're standing on a false pedestal. Shit, dude, you're not gaslighting anybody, but shoot, dude, I'd be willing to bet personal, like, dinero that you're effectively gaslighting people.
Just luck of the draw.
I'm also not gonna lie to you, I'm kind of surprised he doesn't have, like, the understanding of how Osmond works, to understand that Osmond probably knows. You think, like, Osmond's not dumb, none of the teachers are dumb. They know he's not fit for Beacon. They're not gonna do anything about it. But, like, at that point, either take the teacher side of it, where he'll die anyway. He might, you know, just keep people on the back burner. honestly, like, I don't respect it. Like, you got me. Like, I don't respect him in the slightest, but I can't deny that shit caught me. Alright? But it's like, cause I'm fine if you, like, you can fight me from the mortal graveyard. Like, you can fight me in the moral basement. I don't care where you fight me. Just don't be fighting me on ground you're not sitting on. Don't be in the moral basement like an asshole, saying you have the moral high ground, effectively gaslighting people. Now take when I say gaslighting with a grain of salt, I'm not entirely informed what gaslighting means. I only have the general concept that it's when you tell someone something is false, like trying to override a previous understanding of something, which is to an extent what he's doing. At least in personal opinion. I think he's gaslighting people. But it's just like, it's more than a little irritating. When he tries to take the moral high ground in a situation where, like, he's fighting on a more moral, you know, even ground. As much as he hates to admit it, man talks about like reaching inner enlightenment and coming in with the darkness when the dude's out here fucking the dude over for fun because he has a murder boner and he doesn't like the guy very much. Just like admit that's what you're doing. You're not teaching him shit. You're not even teaching him how to be a meat shield. You're saying, you were looking at him getting beat up by the tennis club and saying, ha ha, and when someone asks, why is this happening, you say, John asked you to. Which, well, technically accurate, is just, like, morally incorrect. Not morally, but it's like, did John ask you for the training? Yes. Are you even actually training him? No! You're sitting there like, he deserves it. And it's like, I get that you think he deserves it. That doesn't, like, give you the, like, it gives you the full moral right away to go, forehead, die. But if you're gonna go, haha, forehead, die, if you're so concerned about his team, him being a liability for his team, just kill him at that point. If you're that upset about it, like if you're gonna attempt to take this moral high ground stand of you could get people I like killed, dude, execute him at that point. If you're going to be that much of a, like, a morally ambitious asshole about it, kill him. Like, you might as well at that point, if that's what you're, like, your plea for why you're in the moral correct, is that he could get good people killed one day. He took the spot of people that could have gone and saved more people. Just kill him. Osmond will put you in charge of Juniper. You don't have to worry about Juniper ever getting fucked. Because now you're the captain of their team, and you're sure not going to let anything happen to them. Your problem solved. Like, you just don't try to, like, work this moral ambiguity here when you clearly don't have any averse, like, feelings towards killing. Stop acting like you do. Shit, tell them what John did. Yang admits it, she knocked his block off. Or if you're, like, you can't be taking this moral high ground. Like, you have it. You could go tell Osmond, and if he didn't know, he beat John out. Or you can go have a conversation with Osmond about why he's still in here. And then we can start talking about moral high ground, okay? But then, and only then, can we start talking about you having any form of moral high ground. Like, only after that can you even start claiming any form of moral high ground. And he is incredibly upsetting. And it's the real part that takes me off. He can be an asshole by himself. Shit, dude, he even brings up good, solid points. But it's when the characters agree with him that my brain wants to yeet some of them out the window. Both Jack and the characters themselves. Like, I'm fine with agreeing with Jack on, like, in a principle manner. I don't agree with agreeing with him in his actual manner of doing it. Jack's methods are about as fucked as they get. In multiple ways. Like his need to... But you need that, buddy. Draven, there was a thing, brother! You could have just picked it up, dude! Maybe giving me some back. Okay, whatever. Okay. Right? But it's just like, it's when they agree with him that it really, like, tilts me out of my mind. Right? Because Jack brings up a lot of things about, like, how the fun is to treat, like, because I get mad over multiple things. The main things I get mad about is when people agree with his treatment of John. Because, like, you're just being, like, not even just morally, like, you're playing both sides and swearing that you're right. You're not even playing both sides. You're happily sitting in the middle, telling people you're playing in the middle, and then truly running, like, down a bit on the opposite side. Honestly, it was a little bit, ambiguous. Right, and it's just like, he sits in the middle, tells everybody he's generally neutral, and then does something bad. And I'm like, you can't keep, like, calling this sense of moral ambiguity and, like, neutrality when it's just not true and no one calling your shit on it. Like, not a single person calling your shit on it. It is what, at the end of the day, my problem is the fact that no one calls his, not even his bluff, but his bluff. Like, no one calls his bluff. They're like, oh. And I'm like, and it happens multiple times. Because he's traveled around the world, but I'm not, everybody, not a single person in this world is free of, like, things along the lines, and not, like, limited to confirmation bias in any form. Right? And it's just like, he keeps taking this form of, like, moral, like, neutrality or a high ground when he's not. Like, he's standing on an invisible hill. Right? And he's like a firm, he has, like, a firm, like, dislike of, like, natural biases. And because he's been all over the world, people take what he says like it's like word of law when it comes to those things, and I'm like, he heard that from the mouth of some dude that probably thought about that shit as fact and never once tried to figure out if it wasn't fact. Right, and it's like, it tilts me when no one calls his bluff on this. If only, like, to a larger degree due to the fact that he calls everyone else's bluff. Every time someone says something, even slightly, like, non-politically correct, not politically correct, but anytime, like, some people will say things that Jin just needed her out of existence, dude. Right? Like, sometimes, like, people will say something, and, like, it's not even, like, politically incorrect. It's what's it called? I guess I'll say like factually wrong, but like are politically charged maybe? I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of the right word for it and it's not coming to me right now. Like sometimes someone will say things and he'll immediately call them out on it. Like effectively call them on their bullshit. I'm like, it makes me incredibly upset you call everyone on their bullshit but no one calls you on yours. Because it's created the world's weirdest dynamic, not even like in character, like within the characters themselves. Because that dynamic for the most part is fine. Like I'm not a fan of it, I don't like it, but the dynamic's understandable and it makes sense. It creates not a power dynamic. It just creates like a weird dynamic. He's always like, Weiss says something racist, she calls him on his shit. He says something like relatively racist about humans. Right? Like, in jest. Like, purposefully, but in jest. Gets away scot-free for it. Well, someone else will say something like, not even mean-spirited, but, like, slightly, like, in poor taste. And he gets, like, incredibly upset. And I'm like, bro, you're running the world's most fucked double standard. Considering how much you, like, swear to God, you're neutral to humans and all this, and then you run this like the world's weirdest double standard, and like you expect us to believe you, and then everyone believes him, and I'm like, shit, dude, I guess you're right. Like, there's not much I can like say to that except like, dude's right apparently. You know what I mean? Like it's just, it causes me like no. Like, because it's a good read, it's a good start, but it's like every single time that happens, it's right as I start coming around. I'm like, oh, you know, like maybe like he's not a good dude, but maybe he's like an okay guy. Like maybe I can give him the benefit of the doubt. Like he's a good enough person. Then he does something like this, and I'm like, never mind, he's a scumbag. Like I'm trying to think of like a real world equivalent. Or like something I draw like a parallel to. Like I'm trying to think of somebody that takes like a false moral high ground. There has to be a word for that. There has to be a word. I know. Is it called on the moral high ground? Dude, he's a felon! He's a fake zealot! The zealot's exactly the word I was looking for! No, that's exactly what he is. Oh my god, I'm so glad I looked that up. It's not even a real word, but Urban Dictionary came up. He's a felon. That's actually it. He's a zealot, right? Like that's what he does. He's a zealot. He's sitting here taking the false moral high ground, and like enforcing it like it's not word of law, but like word of law. And I'm so glad I looked that up. It actually has just freed me of every single like anything in my world. But yeah, it's like every time I start to like him, he takes this moral high ground, like he's some sort of zealot, and then it's just like wrong most of the time, and like no one bothers to be like, hey dude, get off your fucking high horse, because for however much he's like, oh no, I've gotten over all of this stuff, you know, the chains of the past, you know, he's like, but by the way, you know, you made one wisecrack at, you know, Skyrim, you know, not even in, you know, not even in poor taste, but like, you know, just generally ignorant. Let me just tear you a new one. Oh, so you think now all of us are bloodthirsty fucking orgy? Like, and it's like, no, it was a joke, idiot. Or I've never been there before. How am I supposed to know? I've only met you, and no offense, you're kind of a fucking animal. Like, you fight people like you're a savage because that's the only way you know how to fight. And it's like, it poorly reflects on your people if you don't want them to seem like barbarians that you fight like one. Where that's supposedly where you learned how to fight. But anyway, that will be all for this episode of my rage and everything else. Bye, have a nice time to prosperity, whatever.